Hi, my name is Chris from OuiCommunicate. I'm a French teacher for adults, and in this video we'll be talking about the fear of learning French. And before we start, I'm a real teacher with a real business, with real customers, in real reality. You can really find me and I can really teach French. I'm not a YouTuber, so all I'm going to say here is based on my own experience as a professional, based on my experience with real human beings. We'll talk about the problem and how to fix it. Let's start. I've not overly prepared this because I'd like it to remain natural. I don't want it to sound like a lecture. For many people, French is an unknown road. You're essentially standing in the mist, in a misty road, on a road in the mist. You can't see the end point, you don't know quite where you're going. And that is what creates a lot of the fear. It seems big, it's shapeless. French is shapeless. We don't quite know if French lives in textbooks or in the mouths of people who live in France. It seems like this shapeless entity that's really too big to grasp. What monster am I fighting? How can I get a grip on it? And it's, you know, if I were to go into day trading tomorrow, I'd be afraid also. I don't know the first thing about it. I can't imagine what it's like. It's a theoretical, it's an abstract concept for me. So French at the moment, if you don't have experience learning languages, French is the same thing to you. You're standing on the road, there's mist all around, you can't see the end point. Even when you do start learning, you don't know how much progress you have made. And it's, what am I trying to accomplish? How big is the monster? So that's the first issue that causes a lot of fear. I think that a second thing is that we all naturally want to avoid pain and failure. We want to avoid the fear of failure, which is natural. So when we're gearing up to learn French, we might first choose to dip a careful toe in the water with a Duolingo, of course. It's a no-risk approach. And which is why also I say they're the very best in the business, because they know very well how people think. So they created a no-risk system, no risk, no reward system, because as much as you won't take any risk, you really won't learn much either, sadly. So it is a no-risk approach because you can't lose at that game. You can't lose at Duolingo. On the other hand, you can't win either. So you know, I think subconsciously, we all know you really have to jump into the deep end and commit if you're really going to learn French. But even when you do that, and very unfortunately, when you really do commit to learn French seriously, many people are just unlucky to find bad schools, bad teachers, bad methods, and so you quickly chalk it up as a defeat. I tried French, I tried to do it seriously, I tried to do something better than Duolingo, I didn't succeed at it, and so now you have a defeat. And it takes a lot of energy, or it takes a lot of, I don't know, willpower, grit, to say, well, I still believe in a future victory, even though I failed once or twice. Because quite naturally, you wouldn't know a good teacher or a good method from a bad one, would you? How would you know? It's as if I were to give an opinion on a good lawyer or a bad one. I don't know. I really don't know. So a person learning a language, well, they don't have a lot to go by. What's a good teacher? What's a bad one? What's a good method? What's an ineffective one? I think also that we instinctively know that the undertaking is big. We know that a bit of French is as good as no French at all. We sense that we're in this for the long run, but we don't quite know what the road towards learning exactly looks like, because we've never walked this road before. So you really are standing on a road, an unknown road, in the mist. You can't see the end point. How long is this road? This also creates fear. Yet another thing, as I just mentioned, is past experience. Most people have experience learning French, at least at school. Sadly, many adults still have a measure of themselves based on school. Unless you've disproven it to yourself by studies, post-high school studies, many adults still have a measure of themselves based on their experience in high school. How popular they were, how clever they were, how good at languages they were. And it's quite regrettable because we don't all properly measure that schools were never designed to teach foreign languages. They just weren't. They include it in the curriculum. They were not designed to teach languages. High school teachers are not high performance coaches. Another thing is that the term itself is quite vague. What does it mean to speak French, to know French? What does it even mean? And it can be overwhelming, because countless YouTubers are always, I don't know, hammering these tips and tricks and how to sound natural and how to sound this and that, and they all have the best tips and tricks, but they don't quite define what it means, because very few of them have a program. They know bits of French that they'll gladly throw at you, but they don't quite define what the end point is. How do I know when I'm a speaker of French, a proper user of French? And then there's all the rest, the stories we make up in our mind. French is too fast, it's too intellectual for me, it's too beautiful for me, there's too much to memorize, the sounds are too hard to produce, and many, many others. You know how it goes. I think there's a wise Greek saying from one of those Greek philosophers, the obstacle you imagine in your mind is always worse than what you actually face. And I think it was an English author who said that most of the problems he made up in his mind he never actually encountered in life. And I think French is just about similar. So if all this sounds like you, I propose we talk about a few solutions. Well, the first one is, can you achieve French? Can you achieve French? Is it possible to achieve French? Yes. Yes, 100%, no doubt about it. You can achieve French. Of course you can. Yeah, so you shouldn't ideally be afraid of that. You can achieve French. And this is why I'm in business. I'm not in business to sustain French or to offer you bits of French, classes of French. I'm in business to bring you the whole French, all the French you need. My pleasure in life, as a French coach / tutor / teacher, my pleasure in life is to make people successful. That's what makes sense to me, to make learners of French successful. And I wouldn't be doing this otherwise. I really wouldn't. So I created a business called OuiCommunicate, in which it's like a house, in which you enter in one door, you leave through the other door, and you know French. It's like a car wash, you know. Car comes in, it's dirty, out on the other side it's clean. That's how I see French teaching. You come in through one door, you leave through the exit, and you know French. This is what OuiCommunicate's about. I think it takes a high level of faith and commitment, and that's how much I believe in it. That's how much I know it's possible, because I've seen it before, and I know it can be done. That's how much faith I have that it is entirely possible and achievable. Now the hard part for me is to make you believe that. So yes, it is possible. Ideally you shouldn't be afraid, but I would understand if you are afraid. As we mentioned, the shapeless monster is scary. But because French is this shapeless monster, it's this unknown entity. We don't know the size of it, we don't know the shape it takes, we call it French, we don't know where it starts, we don't know where it ends. What do we even call learning French, or having learned French, or speaking French well? What is French? How big is it? Or it's a shapeless monster, isn't it? But if I started to learn any language tomorrow, I would achieve most of it within a year. I would. So why me and not you? Not because I'm more clever, but because of my university background as a teacher in literature and linguistics, and my ability to see languages as systems, right? And so can you. Once you see a language as a system and not as a random collection of words, you'll already be making a lot of progress. Because you cannot and should not study a language as a random collection of words. A language isn't phrases. A language isn't learning, excuse me, where are the toilets, excuse me, can I have the menu? That will, I don't think it will lead you far at all. So it takes a necessary step back on what you're trying to achieve. The language is here, French. Take a step back. What am I trying to achieve? What does it mean to learn French? Learning a language implies becoming a language learner, and this is very important. And we often forget the learning part, which means understanding the task at hand. Learning the language is the action, but you also have the identity part. You have to become a language learner. And you'll see that most YouTubers, they're an easy targets, but also teachers and even language schools are, well, sadly, just not very good at what they do, because they sort of treat languages like pouring liquid into a cup. You know, they're pouring water into a cup. And they think that pouring knowledge onto you will serve you. And, well, the least successful learners I've met also view languages this way. And they'll sometimes show up and say, oh, I've learned a new word in French, and apparently the French really say this and don't say this, and they say, I don't know, comment ça va, and not something else. And it's little snippets of languages, it's little phrases, and they memorize random things outside of any system or context. They're not language learners, I want to call it phrase memorizers, but that's a different thing altogether. This is not what ideally you should be wanting to do. So as a first step, we have to ask the right questions. Instead of seeing French like a shapeless beast, a shapeless entity, we could put it in boxes. That's a great first step, put it in boxes. I said that if I had to learn a new language tomorrow, I would structure it. That's exactly what I mean. There are 8 boxes. Any phrase you say, all the words fall into one of 8 boxes. There are nouns, there are verbs, there are adjectives. So once you start to do this, you start to see what you're trying to achieve, because now you gain a sense of perspective. It's not just a random collection of words, categories of words. And no, it isn't complicated. If French is taught properly to you, it becomes quite achievable, quite easy even. Similarly to this, letters mean sounds. A letter is linked to a certain sound. You have to ask yourself, well, what is the consistency of this sound? Is it always the same sound? How should it sound? How do letters relate to sound? So now you start to put rationality into your French. You take a step back and you think about, it's a meta-discourse, isn't it? You're watching yourself learn French. You're understanding from the outside what you're exactly doing. And it's like boxing. Let's take the example of boxing. It's not just showing throwing fists. It's not showing throwing punches. You either throw a straight, a hook, a jab, an uppercut. You know, it's not just fists. There's a technique behind all of this. You have to know what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. You have to take a step back on your own learning. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to know more verbs? Are you quite sure you know all the prepositions? And you can start ticking off boxes, because it becomes a yes or no question. Yes or no, do I know the prepositions? Yes or no, do I know the necessary tenses? And you step into rationality. And where there's rationality, of course, fear dissipates. The way I teach French, I split it right down the middle. I separate nouns, so there's the memorizing parts, the naming words, you know, how do you say desk, microphone, computer, keyboard, these are nouns, that's in this column. And then you have the technique, the mechanical parts of French, the system, how does French behave, what is likely to happen, how do the prepositions work, how do the adverbs work, how many should I know? Once you do that, you become an understander of French, and the beast appears more and more like a structured voyage until the end point. You start to enjoy structure. You start to understand that there is a finishing line and that French isn't infinite. Your fear of failure and the psychological fears that we often make up will diminish once you do that, because French will become very rational all of a sudden. Failure will become less and less possible. And I said it should be a matter of yes or no, black or white, no grey zones. Do I know it yes or no? Do I know the number of, I don't know, prepositions? Do I know that there's, I don't know, 6 or 7 tenses? Do I know their function and how to apply them and how to pronounce them, yes or no. And one last thing I'd like to add, because this topic is really very broad and I'll be making a series of videos in this same style. I could talk for hours about this. I don't want to throw everything at you in one go. I think it's also very important, if you're afraid of learning French, to place yourself in the position of the hero. I think it's very important to place yourself in the position of the hero. You can't approach French like someone else's language, as if it doesn't belong to you. You have to own French. It's yours. You can't tiptoe into French and act like it's someone else's language. You have to own it. And being the hero of this story, of this learning story, helps you keep your curiosity alive, because your curiosity about French should be kept alive. You need to link French to your own needs. Constantly ask yourself questions. How would I say this? If this happens, how would I say it? Do I know the word for this object here? What do I want to say? Not what am I allowed to say as a tiptoeer into French. Me, the hero of the story who owns French, what do I want to say with French? I think it's very important to own French, to be the hero of the story. And as I said, if I started a language tomorrow, I would own it. I definitely would, and I will, before I die, learn another language. It might be Italian, it might be Danish, one of the two, I'm not sure, but I would definitely own it. I would say, Chris, okay, you're starting Italian tomorrow. It would be a fact that a year from now I would know most of it. I would approach it rationally. I wouldn't be afraid. This, of course, implies that I've made research to find a good system, because that's the hardest part about learning a language, is finding a good system and someone who can really teach it to you with a good method and a rational system. I would attempt to ask the right questions, the relevant questions about the language, concerning the sounds, concerning the tenses. I would understand the system of the language, and I would absolutely include it as part of my identity. I wouldn't say I'm learning Italian on the side and I don't have a definite goal and maybe it will work, maybe it won't. No, it would become part of my identity. I am now an Italian learner who is bound for success. I'm going towards success. I'd be the hero of that story. I think that if you become French, if you become the French language, not the nationality, if you become the French language, you can't quite as much fear learning it, because it's already yours. It belongs to you. You see what I mean? I hope this video was useful. My name is Chris. I'm a real French teacher in real reality with a real business. You're welcome to contact me. I hope it was useful. I say you can do it in a year. You can do it in 8 months to 12 months, or you can even spread it across over 2 years. But a year is sufficient to learn French if you do it the proper way. Look me up. You can find me at OuiCommunicate.com. I'll be making more of these videos, so you might want to subscribe. It would make me very happy. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.